Hey, good morning, everybody. We got a special guest today. We have Mark Adams. If you guys haven't recognized him, I don't know where you've been. This guy's everywhere. He does a lot of great stuff. And I got to tell you, he's got a great YouTube channel. I enjoy listening to it. If you aren't subscribed, you need to do so. The links and stuff will be in the descriptions later. So you can go back, you can rewatch, you can show a friend. But Mark, thank you so much for coming. Tell
Thanks for
everybody.
having me.
Oh, man. Yeah, I owe you a huge favor. I tell you what, this is, I tell you, this has been a little bit of a dream of mine. I like having YouTube channels. I like bringing on different people. They don't have to be the biggest names. They don't have to be the smallest names. They don't have to be anybody necessarily that anybody knows. They have to be somebody who's willing, right? And you are someone who has the passion like me, who wants to get on, talk, don't have a problem talking with other people. And the greatest thing I think is you're polite, respectable, you have integrity, and those are those things that I really truly believe and want to mold myself after. So again, hey, if you're not subscribed to Mark, you better get over there and do it because Mark's got a great channel. Mark, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for the huge introduction. Usually people are just like, here's Mark. We couldn't get anybody better. So here's Mark. Yeah, I write for 49ers Web Zone. Been doing that since 2001. Started right around the time they drafted Trey Lance, right around that time. And so did that for probably a good year. Maybe about 2 years. And about a year in, people started saying, hey, you need to be on YouTube. You need to have a channel. And I was like I'm on plenty of shows and I like doing that because I can talk and then leave and I don't have to do anything before or after. And I just thought, man, it sounds like a lot of work, but people kept pushing me, and John Chapman is one of my buddies. And he said, hey, if you'll do this, I'll be your very first guest. And so I finally decided, like in February of 2023, all right, I'm going to do this. I started it right before the NFC Championship game, so right before Brock Purdy almost lost his arm. And true to his word, John came on, and I've had a lot of really fun guests. And right now I do a weekly thing with Anthony Robertson of 49ers Cutback. We do a show called The Red and Bold Show. And we're having a lot of fun with that, but I need to get back into having some guests because what I did was I was like, nobody's going to want to come and hear me. That's just what I think. And so I knew that I needed to land some really good guests. And so right out of the gate, I'm getting John Chapman and Oscar Aparicio from the Better Rivals podcast. Matt Barrows, I had Katie Mox. I've had some really cool guests, and I kind of felt like that was going to be something that I could do, that just like more of an interviewer rather than just sitting in front of a camera and talking, because who wants to listen to me? That was kind of my frame of mind, is that nobody's going to want to listen to me, so I have to bring on cool guests. But yeah, I've been having fun. Get to do a lot of different shows. Before the Super Bowl, I was on some show out of Australia that wanted to talk about the 49ers in the Super Bowl. And occasionally I'm on ESPN radio out of Honolulu, which I didn't even know the 49ers were big there, but I guess they are. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, just trying to keep up with everything, in life, and then doing 49er stuff.
All right, David, I'm gonna give it to you. I don't know I'm pretty sure you follow Mark. I'm pretty positive you do. I know I've been over there. I've seen Bebop. I think you see Bebop in the chat. Me and him are two frequent flyers to Mark's channel. Is there anything you'd like to ask Mark before we get going?
Well, there's always a lot of news and rumors, and it's almost like, the line between this actually has traction and this is definitely not happening. Where does that fall to you?
are you talking a specific one or just in general?
Specific, just in general, the 49ers, the speculation train has no brakes with us.
Yeah.
Since I was a kid, but just like, what was it? There was a rumor that we're in on Aaron Rodgers, for example. We're in on pretty much every available decent QB there is, and
Mm-hmm.
just stuff like that. How, like, and then we don't do anything about it. John Lynch always says we do take calls on everybody. That doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
talking to them though, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I think you have to look
we
at each
have,
situation. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, we have the Brandon Ayuk rumors are flying right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's prime example.
Yeah. And I think that whenever you have a situation where, okay, here's a guy who now is headed into his 5th season, so he can be in a first round draft pick. They can renew his they can extend his contract, give him a new one, so to speak. And so he wants to be paid. I don't think that Brandon Ayuk wants to leave San Francisco. I think that he just wants to be paid. He's doing similar things to what Deebo Samuel did a couple of years ago, which is because Ayuk is never on social media. So on, or at least on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I think that when he did the thing with Mike Tomlin, that was the first time that he had posted in a year or something like that. I think that's what I heard. And so that's very strategic. And Anthony Robertson and I talked about this, that it's very possible that this is coming from his agent, that even though Ayuk posted that, it was his agent saying, hey, this is the way we negotiate these days. You've got to get on social media. You've got to remove the 49ers stuff off of your IG or whatever it is, like when Deebo was doing that kind of thing or asking for a trade or whatever. That's just kind of how they operate these days. And it's kind of weird, but sometimes it's pretty effective. Now, the 49ers don't seem to be swayed by that stuff. They waited until the last possible minute to re-up Deebo Samuel. They waited past the last possible minute to re-up Nick Bosa. So they're going to do what they're going to do. And I don't think that they're that concerned about it. But yeah, whenever we hear news, any kind of rumor and things like that, you just kind of have to move into it slowly. A lot of fans are just immediately right on it. Oh my gosh, we're going to get Aaron Rodgers. And there was some truth to that. They called about Aaron Rodgers. I think that they were hoping to give that number 3 overall pick that they used on Trey Lance. I think they were hoping to give that to the Packers for Rodgers. I wish it would have worked out because they probably win that Super Bowl in 2021 when Garoppolo was the quarterback. They probably have a really good shot in 2022. And maybe they win it this year, this past year. Nothing against Brock Purdy, but Aaron Rodgers is just on a different level. And so I think when I hear the rumors, I listen a lot to guys like Matt Maiocco or Mike Silver. What are they saying? If Matt's saying, yeah, I just don't really see it, then I'm probably going to back off and I'll probably do something on whether it's 49ers Web Zone or on YouTube. I'll probably say something about it, but I'm not going to jump very far in because you just never know. But there have been times that I've seen Matt Maiocco say, yeah, I don't really see it happening. And then it happens. So with the 49ers, you'd never know because they go to the beat of their own drum. So they don't play the same, like they'll mix it up from season to season. So it's crazy the things that they do. I mean, when you're willing to trade DeForest Buckner, when you're willing to trade a whole heap of picks up to get Trey Lance, you never know what they're going to do. And then they end up with a 7th round pick being the quarterback that may be the quarterback of the future. What's
So
up,
let me
Josh?
ask you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Yeah, there's a couple of new people, but let me ask you because you write for the Niners, so you have a little bit of you have a lot more insight than normal fans. I'm a normal fan. Call me a homer. I'll call myself a homer. I don't mind it. I have my own jersey, right? Because I don't believe they can cut me. They can't tell me not to root for the team, right? So right now I got the Moody jersey on. I think you've heard about me. I might have been the
Yeah.
first person to buy a Moody jersey. When we were doing the draft last year, I kind of predicted we were going to take him, and I said his name right before. And we erupted. Everybody had a great time. I pulled my tie off, did the best Mel Kiper impersonation I could. But with the timeline, the way I understand it is when Watson was coming to be available, the Niners were dragging their feet because they really wanted Watson. But when we heard about the rumors that was coming out, and really before the rumors, when we heard that the Texans owner didn't want to trade him, the Niners started looking different ways. And I believe they started looking at Sam Darnold. And then there was the combine thing, and there was the BYU quarterback, Zach Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was all this talk about the Niners trying to trade up to the Jets to get BYU because we weren't going to get Trevor Lawrence from the Jaguars. It just wasn't going to happen. We ended up making it to 3. And then the night before the draft, they pick up the phone and they call the Green Bay Packers and they say, hey, what do you think about trading for, our 3 pick and us taking Aaron Rodgers? And it almost happened. And I'm one of those guys too. I like Alex Smith, but I kind of see it maybe in hindsight now. I think it was his first or second play. He got hurt. I'm not bagging the guy at all, but it just happened, right? He got hurt and it kind of stunted his career. Multiple coordinators, multiple coaches, all that great stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm in the mindset, if we would have drafted Rodgers, he might have gotten hurt, but I think we would have gotten the better player, the player that was ready to play faster or sooner. And that's funny because he sat for 4 years behind Brett Favre. So he really didn't play right away where Alex did. And I think Alex needed the time to sit more. But going back, we could have had Aaron Rodgers. We chose to move up to 3. And at that time, they didn't really tell anybody what quarterback they were taking. There was Justin Fields, there was Trey Lance, and there was Mac Jones. And nobody wanted Mac Jones because of the DUI, correct?
Well, and nobody wanted him because he didn't have that athletic part of him like Justin Fields and Trey Lance did.
The mobile part, right?
Yeah, because that was what a lot of people were saying that Kyle Shanahan wanted, because in that 2020 season, when Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills came into San Francisco, and Allen was just incredible. And so a lot of people said at that time that Shanahan was like, I need a guy like that. So that's why I just didn't buy the Mac Jones rumors, because even though he fit more of what Kyle had in the past, I didn't feel like he fit what it sounded like Kyle wanted. Now, I think with Brock Purdy, he kind of has a little of both, because Brock's not near as athletic as Justin Fields, and he doesn't have the arm strength that Trey Lance has, but he's really accurate. He has enough mobility that he can move around. He's more Montana-like, where maybe Fields and Trey Lance were more Steve Young-like. If they would learn to throw with great accuracy and anticipation. But that's why I wasn't buying the Mac Jones to San Francisco rumors.
Okay, so there's my question for you. Now we got the timeline out there. Oh, and we got to throw in Kirk Cousins because we all like that, right?
Yeah.
But we can't seem to ever get a hold of him. So I'm going to throw him into the equation as well. If you can trade that number 3 pick or keep it, you could have traded it for Rodgers or Kirk Cousins. We'll make that scenario. Or you could have picked any of those top 5 quarterbacks that went into the draft. Maybe the Jaguars trade with us or the Jets. You are the general manager, Mark. What are you doing with that pick?
Well, gosh, I mean, Trevor Lawrence was the one that everybody wanted. I don't know that he is what everybody thinks or thought that he was going to be. Trey Lance hasn't had a chance. And so I know that everybody calls him a bust, but he hasn't had a chance. To me, I haven't really defended him, but I've defended the fact that you can't label somebody a bust when they've only played like 14, 15 quarters. That's nothing in the NFL, especially for a quarterback. So if I was the general manager, knowing what I know now, because at that time, I probably would have picked Trevor Lawrence if he was available. I wanted Justin Fields, but I was happy with Trey Lance. But knowing what I know now about those quarterbacks, and if I was picking at number 3, I would pick Micah Parsons, and then that way I'd have Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons, and I'll figure out the quarterback situation. But it's easy to look back. I mean, really, if I was going to go back, I'd go back to 2017, and instead of picking Solomon Thomas, I would pick Patrick Mahomes. But there were a lot of teams that weren't high on Mahomes, and so to me, the fact that the 49ers didn't even scout him, they were locked into Kirk Cousins, and so if you pass on Mahomes, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame, who's already won 3 Super Bowls, if you passed on him because you're waiting on Kirk Cousins, why did you trade for Jimmy Garoppolo? That's the thing that I don't understand, because if they would have held on to those, I mean, they didn't give up much to get Garoppolo, but if they wouldn't have drafted or traded for Garoppolo, they probably don't win those last 5 games. And if that's the case, where are they going to be picking at that point? Who's available at that point? So it's real easy to look back and go, I would have done this and this and this, but in real time, you don't have all that information because the draft is a crapshoot. There's NFL history is littered with players that we thought were going to be amazing, and they weren't. And there are many players that nobody thought was going to be any good, and they're in the Hall of Fame.
David, same question for you. If you're the general manager, who are you picking at number 3? There's not a wrong answer here. There really, truly isn't. And I think he might be muted.
I noticed. But there's, I mean, when it comes down to it, it's all about who's available. Like Mark said, if Trevor Lawrence is there, that's the obvious pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Zach Wilson, if he would have been there, they probably would have picked him, which he's had some extensive playing time, and maybe he's just not fit to be a starter in the NFL, right? And Trey Lance, he's played 4 games, right? I mean, 4 games. That's not enough to label him anything. And, he just didn't get a lot of playing time in college too, so it's hard to say what he can be. Maybe we'll see it one day. Maybe a team will give him a chance. But I honestly would have I don't think I would have changed anything. I think I would have took Trey Lance. But if I was the general manager, I wouldn't have traded up to start with, because we have a win now team, and we can't be taking a project quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just not what you do on a win now team. So I would be making that phone call to, Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers. I would be, maybe even giving Tom Brady a ring, which we would have to give draft compensation to the Bucks, because I don't know if he didn't retire at that point. He played that season, right?
Yeah.
Well, the 2018 season, that's when Jimmy got hurt. The 2017 season, when we traded for Jimmy, we tried to trade for Tom Brady, but they wouldn't let us go. There was the rumor that in New England that Brady wanted out, and we couldn't obtain Brady. Everybody knew Brady wanted to come to the Niners. Mm-hmm. It was like the league was trying to hold him away. It's funny he gets traded to Tampa Bay right after we signed Jimmy to a big contract. Then right after that. And if we would have had the money right there, we could have traded for Tom Brady. But there were so many people sitting back saying, I don't want Tom Brady. I want to win the Super Bowl on our own. Mark, at this point, it's been 30 years, 31 years. Do you care who wins the Super Bowl for the 49ers?
No, I don't care who the quarterback is. I just want them to win number 6. That's all. That's what we're all waiting for, and they've come close 3 times. With Kaepernick, they were within 5 yards.
Yep.
If they give the ball to Gore, maybe a couple of times, they have a really good chance of winning that game. They still would have had to stop the Ravens and keep them from kicking a field goal. But then in 2019, man, just an epic collapse, on that 3rd and 15 when Bosa's being held and somehow Mahomes gets rid of the ball, and then it went downhill from there. And then this Super Bowl was the closest. The closest that they came. They really had an opportunity to pull that out and just couldn't get it done.
All right. Well, what a could, shoulda, and I truly believe we will be back there next year. The Niners are one of those teams. We've been to the NFC Championship more than any other time. We're getting close to saying we've been to the Super Bowl more than any time, any team, right? And I know this is going to sound ugly. I have a bad fear that we're going to lose 5 before we win the next one. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope we go to the next one and we win it. I hope the Chiefs don't repeat it. I don't see it happening. I don't see it because the NFL it's not for long. That's what it means. Three-peating would mean that the league's really changing its direction. You can win 3 Super Bowls like they've done, but to win them 3 in a row, there's just something. It's the whole Roger Craig mentality, right? He fumbled. That's probably why he's not in this. That's probably why he's not in the Hall of Fame. He scored several touchdowns in the Super Bowl record on the Niners for 8 years, 11 years in the NFL. Guy, 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing, the first to do it. Marshall Faulk made it. CMC, he's probably going to go into the Hall of Fame. And he fumbled in the Super Bowl. And he'll probably still make it to this. So for whatever is happening with Roger Craig, I hope, because what your awareness has done and other people's, I've put it in some of my descriptions to, get Hall of Famer, get him in there, get Roger Craig in there. He should be a Hall of Famer. But to switch gears just a little bit, and I know we only have you for a little bit, we'll keep you as long as we can, but you're drafting now this year, and it's the 3rd round, and Brendan Rice is still on the board. Are you taking Brendan Rice at number 3?
Probably not.
Okay.
I think that he potentially could be a good NFL receiver. I think that it's going to be hard for the son of a legendary player like Rice, like Jerry Rice, to come to Jerry's team and have that Rice on the back of his jersey, and because everybody's going to compare him to his dad. I did it without even thinking about it. The other day at I guess Caleb Williams threw the other day, and Brendan Rice was one of his receivers that he was throwing to, and just watching him run, I was like, man, he's not smooth like his dad. And then like who is, but that's part of the issue. I mean, you look at Brandon Ayuk, he runs he looks like he's gliding. He's so smooth. When I was watching Brendan Rice, and this was without pads, he just didn't look smooth. Now, I didn't watch him in college, so I can't speak on what he's like on the field. All I can say is I think the pressure would be enormous. Even though it would be a great story and people like me would write about it and people like you would talk about it, and it would be a great thing. But as soon as he has some rookie struggles, or if he's looking like Ronnie Bell, where, hey, he had a good game against the Giants, but now he's fumbling punts. I'm not saying he would be the punt returner, but if he catches a pass and fumbles it, all of a sudden there's that pressure that, well, Jerry would never do that, even though Jerry did. He had his issues. And in fact, as I think it was his second season in the NFL, the 49ers were playing the Giants in the playoffs, and this was the blowout game when Jim Burton knocked Montana out of the game. And the game was early, and Montana hit Rice right over the middle, and he was running for what looked like it was going to be about an 80-yard touchdown. Nobody around him, and he just, while he's running, just fumbled the ball. Nobody even close to him, but he fumbled. The Giants recovered it, and the 49ers never did anything after that. And so, young player making a mistake on a big stage, but he was just so special. I'd hate for, even though I think it would be a great story, I would hate for his son to have to live up to his legacy, because there's no way that he can. It would be like if the Chicago Bulls drafted Michael Jordan's son. Just he's not going to survive, I don't think, even if he's really, really good, because people have that mind, in their mind. They see Jordan winning 6 championships, and for us, we see Rice with 11 catches for 215 yards or whatever in Super Bowl 23. We see those things, and we see him breaking the all-time touchdowns record against the Raiders in the first game on Monday night against the Raiders, and so just that legend, and now his kid has to kind of step in, and even though nobody would expect him to be Jerry, I think that it would be hard. I think it would be a lot of pressure, but beyond that, I don't know if I felt like he was the best receiver, then yeah, I'm not going to worry about that. But I don't know that he would be the best receiver at that spot.
Well, I'm going to get David's opinion on this too. I think he might have swayed me a little bit, or at least changed my thoughts in it. Because I don't want to look at it and say, oh, well, my dad did that, so I have to go. My dad's a plumber, right? I can't be a plumber. I got to be an electrician, or my dad's a wide receiver, so I need to go be a kicker, So, but the name on the back, is your name. It's your legacy, right? And it's because of your parents and your family ahead of, before you. So wherever he goes, if he goes anywhere, even if he went to the arena football, people would be like, Jerry Rice's son's in arena football, right? So it's he's not going to ever be able to escape that.
Sure. Yeah.
I do like what you say and understand that, him coming to the Niners, we are the faithful, right? But we get a little bit into our emotions. Maybe it's a good thing I'm wearing the Moody jersey, right? I coined last season the Moody season, because it doesn't matter. Even if we would have won the Super Bowl, people would have complained, oh, well, we won it because of kicker, or we won it because, or the kicker missed the extra point still. I don't see us being completely satisfied, even winning a championship. And maybe that's just the nature of the beast. So like with McCaffrey, I don't see him coming. I don't see Frank Gore Jr. coming. He maybe, but I don't see it happening, because just like what you said, the name on the back of the jersey, people would want to buy the jersey because it's their hero. They're heroes, that guy's dad. But it puts a lot of pressure on those players, and maybe for those players to go to a different team, maybe they'd have better success. But I tell you, if I had the number 3 pick, I'm taking Rice. David, what are you doing at number 3?
Well, when I look at Brendan Rice, Mark's right. He's got some big shoes to fill with his dad. As long as we don't expect that, which, our fan base, that's not going to happen. That's not the reality, right?
No.
So, but I look at him like, Juwan Jennings is under contract for 1 more year, and we need a 6'3", 200+ pound, third down guy. And I believe he might be faster, running wise than Juwan Jennings. So he could have a place on this team in a future with us. But, that's, and I wouldn't mind having him on the team. At the same time, it's like, do we really want to do that to him? Draft him with the legacy his dad left. If he goes to another team and is pretty good, above average, ends up being really good, then more power to him. But,
yeah,
here with the 49ers, he's got some big shoes to fill, And then we got like that Luke McCaffrey guy. A lot of folks are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a hair faster than his brother in the 40 time. I saw that. I was kind of laughing. You know, he's decent size. He's a McCaffrey. I totally see Kyle like drafting him if he's available in the 3rd, 4th round. You know, the one guy when it comes to we're talking legacy players here, Frank Gore Jr. He's not going to pound it like his dad did. You know, his dad would just run over people and freight train and, you know, Frank the Tank Gore, right? But he's kind of a scat back. He's a good change of pace guy. He's a good 3rd down back. He can catch it out of the backfield. We honestly need that change of pace guy on our team. So I believe that he would be a good pickup. You know, I don't know what you guys think though. What do you think, Mark?
I think that you're right, that he is a different type of runner. He even said it, that his dad had more power, but that he feels like he's a little bit more elusive. But yeah, I think that would be, if we're talking legacy draft picks, I think Frank Gore Jr. might be the best of those for the 49ers. But you know, my concern is if you have Brendan Rice, who Jerry's involved with the team, or if you have Frank Gore Jr., who his dad is involved with the team, or if you have Luke McCaffrey, who his brother plays for the team, what if there's a situation where, man, they're just not looking good and the 49ers need to cut them? How do you tell Frank Gore, hey, we're cutting your kid? How do you tell Jerry Rice, we have to cut your kid? Not that that would happen, but if it did, I'd hate to be the guy that's telling them that, you know. But that's just me. Maybe in the NFL, maybe it's not that complicated.
No,
just draft the best player.
That could be the best argument I've heard to not get them. Is how do you deal with the aftermath of them not making the team? Right?
Yeah,
Brian,
right.
What do you got, buddy?
No, I'm that's really, I'm glad we got you on for a different type of perspective. Me and David's been doing mock drafts, and you know, again, I'm a homer. I like the legacy players. You know, I think it's neat. No one else has wore 21 since Gore, so I do see if his son was drafted, he'd probably wear 21. I make a joke, if Rice was drafted, he wouldn't wear 80, he'd wear 81 because he's the next one. You know, it's just having fun with words, right? But I see potentially us taking a wide receiver at 3 because of everything happening with Brandon Ayuk, with the, you know, potential Jennings might not come back next year. We don't know what's going on with Ronnie Bell. Conley, I don't think we have Conley anymore. I think he signed with another team, if I'm correct. I could be wrong.
No, he's coming back.
Okay. They signed him to a 1-year deal. He'll be on our practice squad more than likely. Danny Gray's a big question mark too, though. We haven't seen him. And he's a guy that will take the top off the defense. We kind of need that, you know.
And for him, I don't see him sticking around with the team. I don't see him physically, like with Trey Lance, yes, but with Brock Purdy, I don't see us having a Danny Gray need, if that makes sense. As I don't know. It's sad because you get players and you take a shot on them, and then like 1 or 2 seasons, they don't fit your scheme. So then you have to move on. This is Jerry Rice's second son. And if I'm correct, his first son didn't make the team. He didn't make the Niners, but I think we brought him in for a tryout, if I'm correct. This was a couple of years ago, and I think he signed with the Ravens, if I'm correct. But not everybody has what their dad has. Sometimes you're a little bit better. And sometimes, you know, like you said, you know, you didn't watch all the routes, but, you know, sometimes people don't practice, you know, or test correct, right? You know, they got it up here, but when they go to put it on paper, it doesn't come out, right? So, I don't know. The one guy that I hope the Niners aren't sleeping on, and David knows who I'm going to say, and we probably could get him as an undrafted free agent. I'd like to see them go after that Washington guy up there. His last name is the same as mine. I like to tell everybody he's my cousin. Devin Colt. He's a tight end out of Washington. He's the I don't know. I mean, I think if we was able to go after him as an undrafted free agent, there's a chance the guy can catch pretty well. So, but we got players from last year's draft that I don't know. We redshirted him for a reason. So I still believe in Cameron Latou. I don't know. What's your thoughts on Cameron Latou?
Yeah, I don't really know. When they drafted Latu and and then later drafted Braden Willis, I'm an Oklahoma guy, so a lot of times when you're talking Pac-10 or Pac-8, whatever it was here recently, uh, and this is part of the issue with what they call the East Coast bias is because when we talked about Roger Craig, when I did the Roger Craig podcast series, I asked Steve Young, is there any truth? Because Brent Jones had mentioned the East Coast bias is keeping Roger Craig out of the Hall of Fame. When I asked Steve, he said it has. He said, I think that there is an East Coast bias, but he said I don't think it's intentional. It's more of you guys play later in the day, so we don't on the East Coast we don't see you. Well, I'm not East Coast. I'm in the Chicago area, so I have. But I used to live in Oklahoma for a long time, so I'm an OU guy. So I a lot of times with the West Coast players, like this tight end that you're talking about from Washington, I'm not familiar with him because by the time they play, a lot of times I've already moved on to other things in the day. So I liked Braden Willis more than I liked Latu, but they drafted Latu a lot higher. So and they know a lot more than I do. So I just assumed he's a guy that they really like, and then he got hurt. But I would love to see the 49ers grab a tight end who can block, who can be a threat in the passing game. That would be huge for this team, I think.
Yeah, most definitely. I seen Willis in later in the season. I think there was a fumble. He didn't jump down on the ball the way I would have liked to see it. So I'm not just saying, he's gone to me or anything like that. I just want to see that kind of reaction. It was kind of like the Cam Newton reaction in the Super Bowl. It's like the ball's right there. Get in the way of somebody, do something, right? Even if you get hit, you're stopping somebody else from getting to the ball. But you can't tell players what to do, especially when you're on the couch, right? But Cameron Latou, I don't know. They redshirted him. I didn't know if he really had an injury. I don't think the Niners would say someone doesn't have an injury, or if they really have an injury, or vice versa. I think they're telling the truth. But it is interesting that they redshirted him, and we kind of needed him last year. No one else really stepped up and filled that void. Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelley, both fan favorites, if you want to say, or tenured 49ers, but I don't see them coming back. So I do see us having an opportunity to maybe take a look at a tight end. Mark, before we get out of here, I really appreciate all your time. Would you tell us your favorite 49er player that you've met and one that you're looking forward to meeting? Because I know you've talked to a couple of players. I know you've talked to one or two that I'd really like to meet. And if anybody here hasn't heard that story, I don't mind. Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, when I first wrote an article for 49ers Web Zone on why Roger Craig should be in the Hall of Fame, and then last year did this podcast series. So I've interviewed Ronnie Lott a couple times, Brent Jones a couple times, Carmen Policy. I mean, he wasn't a player, but still a legend. George Seifert, Randy Cross, Guy McIntyre, Steve Young. But the only time that I was when Joe Montana returned. Like, I didn't have his phone number, but I was able to get his emailed him, and then I see this call. It's it's unavailable. The number is, I answer it, and he says, "Hi, could I speak to Mark?" And I recognized his voice, and I was like, "This is Mark." And he goes, "Hey, Mark, it's Joe." And that I had that moment where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm on the phone with Joe Montana." But I was real professional, and talked to him and did the interview. And then I got off the phone and I texted my wife, "I just talked to Joe Montana." And so that he was my favorite player growing up. Loved Rice, but I've never met him. I did get a statement from Rice for the story that I wrote, but I didn't get to speak with him personally. Um, Steve Young's great. Steve is so classy and so nice. Joe is reclusive. He's really hard to get in touch with. Um, but Steve was great. But Joe was my favorite player growing up. So he would definitely be the one that. And then I wrote a follow up story to that one on because that one was why Roger Craig should be in the Hall of Fame from his teammates. I followed that up with why Roger Craig should be in the Hall of Fame from players who played against him, and I got to talk to Mike Singletary, and he is like, even over the phone, man, I don't know how the 49ers were so bad when he was the head coach, because probably because he hired bad offensive coordinators. But just talking to him on the phone, man, I wanted to run through a wall. That guy is so amazing. And he told me in that interview, he said, "I played with Walter Payton, but I put Roger Craig at the top." And that speaks for Mike Singletary, one of the greatest linebackers in history, to say he puts Roger Craig above Walter Payton. That says it all for me.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. See, that's what's really neat, because YouTube, we were talking a little bit last night. Friday night shows are a little different, a little bit more of a open book. We talk about a lot of different things, right? It's more of a late night talk show, but we do try to keep it football, but we go outside a little bit. We might say football and talk about soccer for a minute, right? We like to joke, but David and me both, we got lucky. We met Steve Young this year. We both were able to get to go to the game, get on the field because of connections that we've made, friendships like this here. And, just it's amazing, right? Technology's made the world smaller, made people get closer together, and made opportunities for people to get to. But Steve Young was the guy. I live in Stockton, California, the 49ers old training camp here at UOP, University of the Tigers. And I'm a big fan of Steve Young. Big fan, right? I always wanted to meet him, never got to meet him, went to every training camp for like 2 years, didn't miss a practice. Like, this they were free. I could go to the training camp for free. I rode on my bike with my brother. My brother's name's Mark as well. He spells it with a K. But so I always see your name and I get excited. But to be able to be a fan and be able to see your team and think that they're kind of like your home team because they're in your backyard, basically. Mm-hmm. They're down from my house. I'm rooting for them. My dad's a Raider fan. He goes and volunteers for the fan days and stuff like that. So, you'd pass out tickets, let people walk into the stadium or whatever, So my dad was doing that kind of stuff, and he got a 49er football for me, a practice ball. He met Steve Young there. He didn't get Steve Young's autograph. He's seen Jerry Rice. A bunch of cheerleaders autographed his shirt for me. But my dad's a Raider fan. And for my dad to stand there and do something like that for me, I know I'm his son, but still it's like, it's not your team, And for my dad to go, that's really cool. So for me, football, that's what it means to me, is family and, Sundays, being able to relax and watch good stuff. And the stats are important, but at a certain point, I got to be honest, they don't matter. If they mattered, people like Roger Craig would be in the Hall of Fame. If stats mattered, then, players that have Super Bowls would be elevated higher. But because they were on a good team, they're like, oh, you were on a good team, so you rode the bench. And I'm not for that. I'm for more of the positive. You got how many players in the NFL? They're supposed to be the best players at their position, and they really are just living somebody's dream. So I'm excited about that. I am. And then for you, man, to be able to do YouTube, that's easy. That's really easy. Like, you see me, I'm just a guy. I'm a Jag, just a guy. But for you to be able to write for the Niners and stuff like that too. That's really cool. It's really cool because you get people like me who get excited and want to read. And sometimes people just can't get enough. And sometimes you got to put down and step away and walk away. And that's why me and David, we like to try to keep our channel positive. We'll get controversial a little bit. We'll say stuff, but for the most part, we try to keep positive because me and David, we don't have the rights. We don't have the decisions. We're not in the draft room. We can't pick who we want. So, I liked Trey Lance a couple years ago. When you look at his stats, he had 1 interception. He had 48 touchdowns. I'm like, wow, this guy's got a big arm. I'm not the biggest person with Ohio. Just when people say Ohio, I'm like Ohio Navy, because when you're in Kentucky, all the people from Ohio just go down there to Lake Cumberland. It's like they take over. It's like a big Navy coming down. So when people say Ohio, I'm like Navy. I'm looking around. It's a Southern joke, but hey, I'm like, look, whatever you want to do, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. But I root a certain way. You root a certain way, and I don't want to put that out there in the vibes. Like fire Shanahan or fire this. No, it's not going to happen. And if it does happen, I'm rooting for the next guy. I'm rooting for the next guy. So,
yep.
You being able to meet Singletary, that was really cool. Singletary, he was probably what we needed at the time, but because he probably couldn't change everything as quickly as he needed to. It's sad. Alex Smith's shoulder. My wife was doing some research and she found out because of Nolan pushing him out there when he had his separated shoulder, ruined his shoulder worse. The dude was literally throwing with just skin. And if people don't understand, his whole shoulder was separated. He had major shoulder surgery. I feel bad now because looking back, I used to get really upset saying, man, the guy just started dirt balls all the time, like Frank Gore, poor guy, he's gonna get to the Hall of Fame by catching footballs at his ankle. And now you go back and you look at it and you're like, it makes sense because the guy he couldn't get it there. So when you do have insight, people like you who can tell knowledge, or maybe somebody like me who might remember one of those details, like we almost got Rodgers, right? And the reason we didn't get Rodgers is because Alex Smith opened up the car door for his mom. You gotta love it, right? You gotta love it. So Mark, thank you very much.
Yeah, my
it's
pleasure.
true, though, right? It's true.
I remember something about Mike Nolan just asking weird questions. I think that Alex and Rodgers both have said that he asked some questions that just were out there and had nothing to do with anything. So yeah, I kind of do remember that opening the car door thing, but.
For 2 things though, so people, if they didn't hear, Alex got out, opened up the car door for his mom. Rodgers did not. And the reason Rodgers says he did not is he was on the opposite side of the street. He was on the side of the street. His mom was on the side of the sidewalk. So his dad should have been getting the door for his mom, right? So that's the defense. That's, because, hey, if you're a man, you get up there, you open up the door for a lady. And if that's your mom, you do the same thing, right? That's what you're supposed to do, right? But Mark, thank you so much for coming. I'd love to have you again sometime.
My pleasure.
David, it's my co-host. We do things together. Maybe sometime we can get you on a Sunday or something, and we can do a Niner Culp, Niner Culp, or that's another thing. We do coast to coast with Ty. Maybe we can get you on with Ty sometime. We rotate that, so every other week we're on a different channel. But Mark, if there's anything you need, just send out the bat signal. I'm here. David's here. We'll show up. We appreciate you as well.
All right.
And everybody else, man, thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
See ya.
Go Niners.
I talk a lot, guys.